Aloha, esteemed members of the committee and our council and Madam Chairman. I'm Jurgen Konda, a lifelong resident of Puna and a recently retired lieutenant of the Hawaii Police Department. I served in Puna, South Hilo, Hamakua, South Kohala districts, as well as being a detective in both East and West Hawaii. The phenomenal growth of the Puna district has far outstripped the police manning levels decades ago. And for the past 2 decades, Puna has essentially been at half the police to population ratio that's required, or it's in other districts. To put this ratio into context, a district is divided into beats, and a police beat is manned by a single officer. Beat 834, which services Hawaiian Paradise Park and Orchid Land, with populations of 12,000 and 3,000 respectively, that is a single officer essentially servicing a population nearly the size of the South Kohala district from the 2010 census. Consider Kaʻu is 8,000 people, Hamakua and North Kohala are 7,500, those 2 districts combined. There is no mystery why this sector has the highest burglary rate for 3 decades and is a highly targeted area for criminals who come from island-wide to victimize the residents. The manning levels of Puna make it impossible to accomplish the universal police mission of reducing crime and reducing the fear of crime. Policing is a dual-pronged process of proactivity and reactivity. Proactivity involves prevention, deterrence, and interdiction of criminal activity, and essentially controlling the crime rates, whereas reactivity is just responding to calls for service and investigation of crimes that occurred. The manning levels of Puna have been maintained to just meet the reactive demand, driving the officers to respond from call to call the entire shift, often without a meal. So you just have half the required ratio, you get half the service, and that does not affect the crime levels. You never see an officer simply patrolling in Puna because they can't. The department can evolve and utilize modern policing methodologies, and it never gets to the manning levels to do so, let alone engage in even conventional proactive practices. As a result, more and more guns are now on the streets of Puna. In the first few months of 2018, over 100 guns were stolen during burglaries. Gun-related calls have escalated. More and more officers are encountering armed individuals in situations where shots have been fired. SRT call-outs are commonplace. This escalation in gun-related violence eventually culminated in the death of Officer Bronson Kaliloa. Months prior to his death, Officer Roger Carvalho was also shot and sustained a serious life-threatening wound. These incidents alone are a clarion call for increased staffing. In recent years, there's been a mass exodus of officers, the most experienced officers from the Puna district, leaving to drive as far as Kona and Kohala, just out of sheer self-preservation. Those that remain or replace them start each shift with a singular thought: survive the shift. I've seen my officers suffer all sorts of physical disorders from stress, but the orders I worry about the most are those that are unseen, because there's a national crisis occurring in the police ranks, and we have experienced that crisis here on the Big Island. Believe it or not, but for the past 3 years, we've actually lost more officers to suicide than we have from line-of-duty deaths. Recently, we lost Officer Christopher Kapua Allison and his wife. And I'll never forget when Officer Rule Delarry took his life. In closing, I just want to say that we have to end this senseless cycle of victimization, crime, and despair and helplessness felt by both the public and the officers. No other measure will have a greater impact on quality of life, enhance safety, and motivate and reinvigorate the police force. It will be felt island-wide because what is happening in Puna and the criminal activity there touches each and every district on this island, as crime and guns are being exported to all of your districts. We have a shared interest and opportunity to make a lasting, profound difference. And that's what all of us that got into government service for, to make a difference and make things better. And this is our time to do that and give Puna the police a fighting chance to succeed. So I'd like to thank members of the council and the mayor for proposing this resolution, and I heartily support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Konda. Next, we'd like to call up Douglas Phillips.
Thank you. My name is Douglas Phillips. I am a Kaʻu resident, and I am a State of Hawaii Organization of Police Officer Union representative for the District of Kaʻu. So I live and work in the District of Kaʻu. I'm here this morning to urge you to support the funding of more officers in our district. We have geographically the largest district on the island. Our officers run from the Volcano National Park all the way to the Magnet Orchard. And many times there are only 2 officers on duty at a time to handle the calls for service. The way our system is set up as far as processing prisoners, if we have a violent offender and those 2 officers involved are processing that arrest, if a priority call comes in, it will be hours before they're able to deal with that call. So public safety is sacrificed due to the fact that we have minimum manpower available to handle the calls in our district. Not only the geographical size, but we also have seen an increase in population in our district recently. A lot of people are moving in. A developer in my neighborhood of Discovery Harbor recently bought 30 lots and is building new homes. There's 3 of them on my own street. 2 of them have sold already. People moving in from places other than the Big Island to live in our district. Population has increased in Ocean View area as well. We see a lot more people moving into that area. We also have seen a vast increase in the amount of tourists that come into Kaʻu. And years ago down in South Point, there might be a handful of cars parked down at the boat hoist. Now there's hundreds of vehicles down there, hundreds going back and forth up and down that road to see Green Sand Beach and to see South Point. And there's incidents that occur down there daily that we're not able to deal with. Kaʻu is a wonderful place to live. I'm happy to be a resident there. We have some fabulous people. During the recent tragedy that we had this last year with one of our officers passing away in the line of duty, our community really came together and supported our officers. We saw people coming out along the streets of the sidewalks in Nalehu town and cheering us on as we drove by and giving us hugs at the store. And I can assure you that the love that those people have for their officers is reciprocated. Our officers that work in Kaʻu genuinely care about the community. They want to make it a better place. And I just urge you today to give the people of Kaʻu the kind of public safety that they need and they deserve by funding more officers to our district. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Phillips. Ms. Self,
I'm going to try my best to get through this.
please introduce yourself.
My name is Dalen Tiles. I work in the Puna district. I have, in August, will be 20 years in the department. I've been mostly in Puna. It has become a huge change in the last years in that district. I'd say almost 100% of our officers that work in Puna live in the district. They love the district. That's where they choose to live. A lot of them have left to go work elsewhere, though, just for self-preservation. They want to be safe. They want to come home to their families at night. In the larger districts, in Kona and in Hilo, they have what is called an information desk officer. It is a receiving desk where people from the public come in and they actually make complaints at the front desk. I am the receiving officer Monday through Friday in the Puna district, and it is dangerous. I'm not trained as an officer. I do not have any kind of weapons. I do not have any kind of safety net. I'm many times out in the lobby and have been chased back into the building, slamming the door behind me because somebody was going to hurt me. I've had, a few years ago, a gunshot right next to me in the lobby. It is a very dangerous place to work, and I really believe we need more officers. And I've been begging for an information desk officer for Puna, because we're as large a district, if not larger than Kona and Hilo. And we've never got them. Every time we get more officers, people retire, things happen, but we just need to get the number of officers up in Puna for sure. It's a beautiful place to live, but it's gotten very dangerous. And I fear for the guys. I'm kind of like the den mother in Puna. I'm that old. And I worry every time they're out in the field. Bronson broke my heart this last year. And every time something happens to one of my officers out there and they're in a situation where there's gunshots, I just can't, it's hard to deal with at this point. So I really want more officers for the Puna district, and I beg you to please help us get that passed. Sorry.
Thank you, Ms. Self.